Several months ago during an interview, SAGINASHVILI was asked about a potential match between Irakli Zarakishvili and Matt Mask. Levon said that was a huge mismatch in favor of Irakli. He even said that his cousin Bacho SAGINASHVILI would beat Matt Mask. I think most of us thought Levon was joking when he said this. But then we started seeing Bacho compete on a bigger stage, and it was terrifying. Here we see Bacho versus Adam Warzinski, and it's not even close. Bacho just absolutely ran through him. After seeing this, I realized that Bacho is no joke. Levon probably was serious about him beating Matt Mask. I think Bacho is already a serious threat for anyone in his weight class, and he might just be going after the super heavyweights as well. This video will cover some of the highlight moments of Bacho's progression in the sport, as well as Devon Larratt's opinion on his potential. Firstly, let's take a look at Devon versus Bacho. The first thing we see is Devon noticing the size of Bacho's hand. Not only is Bacho's hand massive, but it has similar proportions as Levon's hand. It is way too big for how tall he is. This gives him a huge advantage for containment out of straps, and this is probably why Bacho tends to favor more of a high hook lane. His cupping is so good that it just makes sense for him to lead with it. And when Bacho pulls Devon, we see that Devon really starts to struggle considering the weight gap. Bacho's wrist is not good enough to bend it against Devon, but we can see that he is able to drive sideways a little bit while keeping his wrist somewhat flat. He opens Devon's bicep a little and actually pulls Devon's entire body toward him. Now, of course, Bacho is not going to beat Devon. After all, Devon is way bigger and has had way more time to train. On top of that, Devon's style is specifically problematic for Bacho, as Bacho likes to cup, and Devon is probably the best in the world at preventing someone from cupping. Even still, you can tell that Devon is very impressed. Sometime after this, Devon shared his opinion on Bacho's potential. Here is that clip.
What do you think about Bacho?
Yeah, everybody needs to stay away from Bacho. Everybody needs to stay away from him. Yeah, that kid is something very, very special. I mean, at 18, his hand was wider than mine. At 18, yeah. Yeah, I mean, the way
special human being.
Yeah. Georgia, all of Georgia is so strong right now, and Bacho shows that it's not just their current guys. They got guys coming. Like there's juniors and young guys in Georgia who are already to take up the torch.
Here we see Levon comparing his hand size with Bacho. Just like Devon said, Bacho's hand is insane considering his height and age. Although Levon's hand is obviously thicker than Bacho's hand, the frame of his hand is pretty much the same. And of course, Levon is 400 pounds, so it makes sense that his hand is much thicker. Just from Bacho's trip to East versus West, I was already incredibly impressed with him. But after that, I saw this match with David Samushia. If you guys are not super familiar with Samushia, he's the guy that gave Paul Lynn a ton of trouble at East versus West. He was up 2-1 against him, and Paul was just barely able to make the comeback. So clearly this match was super close. I wonder what would happen if Bacho pulled with Samushia. Oh. I guess Bacho's pretty good. I know, it's left-handed, but still, Bacho was 17 years old in this video. 17. And just recently, Bacho became the official WAF Junior champion on both the right and left arm. And keep in mind, this is in the open weight class, so Bacho was pulling guys that are way heavier than he is. But it doesn't matter, he destroys everyone. And it's not even close. The fact that there is such a big gap on this world level stage is crazy. And by the way, this isn't the only class that Bacho competed in. He also pulled Kidergali Ungerbayev. Ungerbayev? You mean the world champion at 105 kilos? Bacho doesn't stand a chance. Oh. Bacho also arm wrestled Krasimir Kostadinov, and in this case, he wasn't quite able to come out on top. I actually thought this was really interesting, because if you guys did not remember, Krasi was one of the last people to get a win on Levon before he went on his rampage. And on top of that, he attacked the same weakness. Both Bacho and Levon's cupping is absolutely overpowered, but it looks like their arm power is not quite at the same level. This theoretically leaves him with a bad style match against hook pullers, so it makes sense that Bacho had some trouble with Krasi. But how strong is Bacho specifically? Let's take a look at some arm wrestling lifts he has done over the past few years. Although I do not consider bench press to be indicative of arm wrestling level, Bacho was able to bench 155 kilos at just 17 years old. This lift tells me that he is just strong in general, especially considering his body weight. We've also seen him manage a 145 kilo bicep curl. Now he is using a significant amount of momentum and cheating in this lift, but heavy bicep curls somewhat demand this once you start lifting over your body weight. In order to counterbalance the massive weight, you have to use a ton of body English. We've also seen him lift 127 kilos on this finger containment lift we see here. Initially, it looks like Bacho was using 2 arms to lift the weight, but he's actually just holding his thumb with his offhand. So this means Bacho is essentially rowing 127 kilos with 1 arm, which is ridiculous. Not to mention the thumbless grip with a rolling handle. This explains why Bacho is so hard to top roll. And here we see Bacho lifting 60 and 70 kilograms on a pronation curl. Now he is using a huge amount of body English once again, but the fact that he is actually curling the weight with a full range of motion, I think offsets that fact. 70 kilos on this lift is a huge number regardless of how much you cheat. And finally, here we see Bacho training some direct side pressure. It looks like a pretty good amount of weight, but I'm unsure of the exact number. So clearly Bacho is on a whole new level considering his age and size. But the question remains, should he attempt to go after the super heavyweight class? Bacho does have the hand size to be a super heavyweight arm wrestler. I certainly could see him following in Levon's footsteps and going after that open weight title. However, at the moment, Bacho was only 6'1". Of course, he may get taller, and I'm not saying that 6'1" is too small to be a super heavyweight, but what I am saying is that Bacho is a perfect size to dominate a weight category. People like Vitaly Larratt, for example, are probably just too big to reach close to their max potential in a weight class. Bacho, on the other hand, could easily make the majority of weight classes currently. He could even still get way bigger from where he is now if he wanted to, and still easily make a weight class. He probably does have the potential of reaching that elite super heavyweight level if he wants, but for the sake of Bacho's health and longevity in the sport, I kinda hope that he stays in a weight class. He basically has a super heavyweight hand attached to a middleweight frame. This is gonna give him a huge advantage going up against 99% of weight class pullers. So if he is gonna have a weight class match, who should he pull next? Personally, I think from a marketing perspective, I would really like to see him pull Ryan Bowen. I would consider Bacho the heavy favorite going into this, so I don't think he's risking too much. And I think everyone would love this match. So to wrap up, I think that Bacho's potential is off the charts. The lifts Bacho is doing, along with every elite arm wrestler he is gripped up with, affirm this position. I think he will do very well regardless of what weight class he decides to tackle. And most importantly, Bacho is yet another example that proves the golden rule of arm wrestling. Never arm wrestle anyone whose name ends in Vili.